I'm Terrell again. I'm going to talk about the work that we've done in playing with distributing the ICAT catalog. So as we've talked about a little bit in the last few hours from a couple different people who have done more testing probably than I have, an iRODS zone has traditionally been deployed in a relatively local physical environment. For a variety of reasons, but this is just the way that it was. And so that's the way that it was tested, and that's the way that it was deployed. Sometimes these were on the only single machine, sometimes they were in a single rack, but usually they still were close enough that the latency was not really a problem between different servers in the same zone. The idea was that if you are far away, that means they're probably in a different administrative unit, and they're probably going to want to have their own opinions in their own zone, in which case federation is the solution, right? Turns out that that was true, but more recently, because networks are now faster and people are more ambitious and things mostly work, they try and do harder things with it. So in the last few years, researchers in all different places, as well as the corporate sector, have become more interested in spanning greater distances with their zones, mostly because of the single namespace. The overhead of keeping track of multiple things is not generally worth it unless you have to. So if you don't have to, you'd like to keep them in one place. Doing that at speed, at a distance, is hard, if not impossible, because of the latency involved in going great distance. So we started to play a little bit with the clustered ICAT as a concept, and our first attempt was with Galera cluster from MariaDB. We did some reading, and Aaron said they actually already did some testing on different systems. We just did the reading and didn't do actually the testing, but we went with Galera also. It is true multi-master, and it does allow you to have your catalog in more than one place, which gives you some of the solution to the problems on the earlier slide, right? It allows you to have local authentication. It allows you to have local lookup for things because every part of the cluster has a full copy of the database. This improves your metadata read performance, obviously, for querying. It also improves for writes because it is multi-master. You can write to any location. It still provides locality of reference for the data at rest. So that was the thing we had before, but now you don't have to bounce to wherever else your catalog is and wait for the response time before you can look it up locally. All that can happen locally because everything that you need is local. Here is a picture to go along with my words. Just look at all the words, look at that. So these addresses and names are coming out of real deployments that are fully Dockerized and are easy to play with, even on a single machine. So you can look at those later if you want to. This is a very quick set of slides. Michael Steely is the one that did nearly all of this work because it was hard, and he's good at that kind of thing. So the first link is a link to the GitHub. It looks just like every other project page on the internet. Look at that. Look at all those words. All right, we're going to close that. Oh, it wanted my mouse. And the second one is for you to read if you want. So we've got a lot of the documentation that we did for this project is actually part of, the READMEs. So it makes my slide work a lot easier, but it puts a lot more words on the screen. So basically the idea is that you have Galera coming out of some Docker images, which you can deploy either locally, or we did some testing with virtual machines. So we deployed the same Docker images, but to different VMs in I guess it's a VMware system. And then we actually did it to virtual machines, and we say WAN here on screen. It was also on the LAN, but with a simulated latency, right? The same way that we did the networking paper about a year ago. So for these particular VMs, we added some precious milliseconds to the networking card settings inside the VM. And so we ended up having a testing script that did puts and gets from a variety of the locations. So they were both local and remote across a set of smaller and longer latencies. And all of this is public. You can go find it. We've got some logs here. Oh, you never put the logs on the screen. I guess it was farther down on this page. You can see that the setup is nothing more than messing with the traffic control binary. And then look at all these logs. Oh my goodness. All right, so the idea here is that we ran a script, it worked, it passed. We did hit the infamous Aaron Gardner deadlock situation. We only hit it once, so apparently he's doing more to it than we are for this test script. But yes, we have, I think there's two approaches basically that we can take to get around this deadlocking. One is to obviously make the transactions shorter so that they aren't doing as much over such a great amount of time, thereby confusing the clustering brain. Or we can, in more of a short-term fix, we can add some retry logic around the transaction block, which should get us at least fewer deadlocks, but probably won't solve it once you actually get to the point where you're having them all the time. I wanted just to share this information with you because we heard from the community that this was something that everybody was kind of hitting up against once they started to think about this stuff at multinational or I think the word was pan-European scale, right? So this is available. We'd love to have you as part of the conversation. We can facilitate another working group if that's something that is helpful. If there's best practices around the type of testing you'd like to see, if there are particular use cases that you have that are not exhibited by what we've already done, please contact us. We'd like to do this in public as much as possible. We're willing not to do it in public. That usually involves dollars, but since we're here for the community, we'd like to do it in the public as much as possible. Raise all of the boats. Are there any questions about that? I want to give Regan Moore a chance to talk. We've also got Nirav Merchant from Cyverse coming through the internet shortly, I hope. Are there any questions? Yes, we've got one. Oh gosh, okay. Okay. Absolutely, yeah, okay. So Aaron's saying that he'll do all the work and that he will talk about it next year when it's perfect. That's what he said. That's right, he doesn't have a microphone.